Welcome to The Savvy Investor, where it's our job to help you be secure in any economy. Now, today on the show, we're going to be talking about one of the most controversial topics we've ever addressed, often maligned, frequently misunderstood, and the bane of Susie Orman's existence. Today, our guest, Dan White, is going to help us understand.
Welcome to The Savvy Investor. Each week, The Savvy Investor helps viewers just like you create and grow wealth, protect and preserve it, and distribute it in the most tax-efficient manner while alive and after you passed. Our goal is to make you a better informed investor that hopefully leads to better results, but certainly less risk along the way. You can have financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worry about your retirement forever. And now, The Savvy Investor with your host, Michael Canet.
I know, I left you hanging there for just a second, didn't I? Well, today our guest, Dan White, is going to break through all the clutter and explain how a variable annuity works. That's right, I said it right here, variable annuity. Contrary to what you may have heard, variable annuities are not bad, they're not good, they just are. If you really think about it, any investment vehicle can be the right tool when used properly, and the investment tool can be a disaster when used incorrectly. Today we want to explore exactly what a variable annuity is, why it works the way it does, and whether it might be the right tool for you. Now, before we get to this topic, we want to take a look at today's headline news. Now, our first piece comes from Annuity Watch USA. And no to variable annuities, says Susie Orman. And this is a video, and she's answering emails from viewers. And she says that under no uncertain terms, a variable annuity is never, and I repeat, never a solution. She hates these and has no problem saying so. What's her main reason for hating these things? She doesn't like annuities because of the fees and the commissions paid to the advisor or broker who sold you the annuity. Now, we're going to explore these two issues a little bit more in greater detail. Now, our second piece comes from out of Kiplinger's magazine, and their title is Real Money, Should I Invest Retirement Savings in a Variable Annuity? Now, that's a great question. And Kiplinger's taken a position that there are many times when a variable annuity may be appropriate. For them, they suggest that somebody who's looking to a guaranteed source of income should think about a variable annuity. Now, this is another issue we want to explore more in detail, because I want you to understand how these company guarantees actually work. Now, I got to tell you here, folks, I've searched far and wide to find articles about variable annuities, and there's not very many positive ones out there. It does beg the question, if there's so much negative news about variable annuities, why are so many people buying them? Now, I'm going to pose that question to our guest today. His name is Dan White, and when we come back, we're going to have this very detailed conversation. You're watching Mike Canet on The Savvy Investor, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to The Savvy Investor. You know, variable annuities are the scourge of the investment world. Regulators watch those who sell them very, very closely. Susie Orman just quite frankly hates them. And other than a few financial advisors, I really can't find very many people who say positive things about them. But they're still one of the largest investments people make. And we know that there can be huge fees involved. There's long surrender periods, there's surrender charges, the whole issue of commissions to the broker, and quite frankly, there's great confusion about how the guarantees actually work. Well, today, we're going to go directly to the industry itself and get our answers. Daniel White is what I would call an annuity expert. He's been in the industry for over 26 years. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike.
So, today we're talking about variable annuities, and I really just want to kind of start out with the basics. I think people understand generically that a variable annuity, I always describe it as a big umbrella that protects you from taxes, but that when you give your money to an insurance company, you're making a contract, and you are putting your money into some sort of investment vehicle. With a variable annuity, typically it's a sub-account. It's run by mutual fund companies, but they're actually called sub-accounts instead of mutual funds. And so in a variable annuity, you'll see things like PIMCO and Allianz and American Funds and Fidelity and T. Rowe and that stuff. But people are really nervous about that, and that's what we were talking about as we opened the show. That people are really nervous about it. And a lot of negativity about annuities in general across the board. And clearly, every time you turn on the television and you see a picture of Susie Orman, she's just railing against them. Although I would encourage you to Google some of her videos, because on one hand she says she hates them, and then on the other hand, when they're appropriate, she thinks they're a great idea. Which, right, of course, it makes it difficult to decide which side of the mouth to believe. But I mean, really, when it boils down to all the negative news about them, there's really a couple things. One, they're talking about commissions. because anytime you buy an insurance product, I don't care if it's your homeowner's insurance, your auto, there's a commission. So they talk about commission, they talk about surrender issues, liquidity issues, and they talk about the fees, not just the surrender charge fees, but the fees involved in the annuity. So let's start with the big thing, the commissions, because as advisors, we always get nervous about the idea that the commission is being charged, and the consumer. You guys hear all the time, don't pay commission, don't pay commission, don't pay commission. But the fact is that if it's the right tool for the right reason, a commission is just the way that they work. But let's talk a little bit about them, because Susie will tell you they're 7%, 10%, 20%.
Right. Well, Mike, you're absolutely right. And I think an advisor's role is to make sure that the product that they select for a particular client is going to work in their individual situation. And no matter what you're doing with a financial advisor, they're going to get paid somewhere.
Right.
If they're buying a mutual fund, they're probably recommending a load fund. You're paying a load up front. If you're in no load funds, it's probably some type of bundled or what we call a managed account, and you may be paying 1 to 2% a year every year.
So instead of paying a commission all at once, you're paying an ongoing fee.
Exactly.
So either way, the advisor is getting paid one way or the other.
Right, and if a client has a question about that, they should ask, because they know sitting across the table from them, the advisor's getting paid somewhere.
Right.
So why not just bring it out in the open and say, yeah, this is how we get paid.
Right, and I agree. And the funny thing is that for some reason, people have it in the back of their mind that they're getting service for free. They're in a 401k and it doesn't cost them anything. Well, that can't be further from the truth. I mean, we see 20 and 30% coming right off the top, and you as the investor don't even see it. And it's the same thing with annuities. I always say annuities aren't good, annuities aren't bad, they just are. Like you said, if it's the right tool for the right reason, well, then use it. There's nothing wrong with using an annuity. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly, and I think where annuities have really come into play the last couple of years is most people don't have pension plans anymore. The defined benefit pension plan is a thing of the past. Where you work 30 years for an entire company, you got the gold watch, the handshake, and boom, you're going to get a check the rest of your life.
Right.
They don't exist anymore. So what people are
Except for federal employees.
Except for federal employees in some states. But they are becoming more and more a thing of the past.
Absolutely.
So what people struggle with is, now they're retiring and they have these 401k plans. And basically, it's a large lump sum of money. It's their entire life savings. And how do they stretch that sum of money over their lifetime and make sure they don't run out?
Right, and I think that's key, is that really, you've saved and struggled your whole life, maybe not struggled so much, but you've saved your whole life to get this nest egg so that you can actually retire in a comfortable manner. And the question is where should that money go? And, obviously today we're talking about variable annuities as one of the possibilities.
Sure.
Certainly not the only possibility. I mean, you can use index annuities, you can use immediate annuities, you can use fixed annuities. I mean, the choices are endless, and all today's show is about annuities anyway. So let's talk a little bit about, we understand how the fee structure works, and I think 3 to 7% is not an unreasonable expectation of what that advisor's getting.
You mean the commission?
The commission, right. That they're getting paid 3 to 7%. But when you compare it to a mutual fund that charges a fee, it's 4, 5, 6% up front.
Sure.
When you compare it to an advisor that's charging an ongoing fee, he's charging 1 or 2% every year. So when you look at it over the course of the relationship, because this isn't a one-time event for most advisors, you really are paying for something. Either you're paying for it up front for a long-term relationship, or you pay a little bit as you go, but either way, the cost is going to be a cost.
Yeah, most of the annuities that you see today have a contract term of between 5 and 10 years. So again, if you're paying somewhere between 3 and 7% over a 5 to 10 year period, and that's the only fee you're paying, it averages out just the same as any other.
The only fee that you're paying to the advisor for his service.
Correct.
Right, because there are fees inside it, and that's always been
Absolutely.
That's always been the second issue that that people bring up, and to some extent, rightfully so. But let's talk a little bit about those fees. Let's talk about the fees that are ongoing every year, week in, week out, that the annuity company charges you as the owner of an annuity. Let's talk about those fees.
Yeah, there's 3 basic types of fees, Mike. The first is what we call an M&E charge, which stands for mortality and expense.
Keep the lights on.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, but the mortality charge is kind of neat as well. It basically says that if you gave an insurance company $100,000, and again, you're in a variable annuity where you're in the market.
And that's actually what the variable part is. you go up or down
Yeah.
as your investments
You
go up or
mentioned
down.
mutual funds, or we call them sub-accounts, but yeah, they're Vanguard, Fidelity, you name it. So you're in the market, and say the market has a downturn, a really bad downturn, you lose 30%. If you were to die at that particular point, your variable annuity is only worth $70,000, but if you die, your beneficiary gets the 100 that you started with.
So that's part of the fee you're paying
That's
for.
the mortality expense. So
Right.
you can't ever get back less than what you started with, okay?
Unless you took money out.
Unless you took money out,
Right,
correct.
right.
So that's the first fee. The second fee is the management fees. Again, the Vanguards, the Fidelities, the T. Rowe Prices of the world, they're not doing it for free either.
Right.
So they charge an ongoing, what we call a sub-account management fee, and they can range anywhere from about 0.25% all the way up to 2%, depending upon the sub-account or the fund that you pick.
Right.
And then finally, the third fee. So again, when you look at these fees, you're getting something in return for the fee that you're paying.
Right.
The third type of fee is what we call a rider fee, and there's many different types of riders, but the most common today is what we call a living benefit or an income rider. And what this does, it guarantees the participant, the client, that they will have a fixed level of income over the rest of their life, irregardless of what the stock market does. So in that result, that's something they can't get in any other type of investment vehicle out there, because most accounts, when the money runs out, they're going to stop paying you, and this guarantees them that they'll have an income for life.
Dan, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation on variable annuities, but we're also going to check in on viewer mail. You're watching The Savvy Investor with Mike Canet. We'll be right back.
If you're in retirement or retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, you must read Michael Canet's best-selling book, Surviving the Perfect Storm. Best-selling author and National Quill Award winner, Michael Canet's Surviving the Perfect Storm is a must-read to prepare for your golden years. This amazing book can be yours absolutely free, but you must call 800-787-SAVVY. Supplies are limited, so be one of the first 25 callers to receive your free limited edition autographed copy of Surviving the Perfect Storm. Call 800-787-SAVVY.
Welcome back to The Savvy Investor. We're going to take some time to answer questions from our viewers. One of our viewers says that she's 70 years old and she's considering converting her traditional IRA into a Roth. And she wants to know, does it make sense to do this at this time, considering her age? What do we think, Mark?
Susan, really good question here. Basically, the place that you start here to get to your answer is on the tax return. What we do is we use a calculation of a mock tax return to calculate what your total income is for the year. The key thing is in a conversion is making sure that, number one, you're going to be able to pay the taxes out of your pocket, and number two, we're not going to push you into a substantially higher tax bracket. We also want to make sure that your beneficiaries would be committed to stretching that IRA beyond your life. Typically, the rule of thumb is if you're over 65 years old, you're not going to convert a traditional IRA to a Roth during your lifetime. And that's really going back to the old rules. Since the stretch IRA came to be, that's changed a little bit, because now the IRA is not just stretched for the rest of your life or converted for the rest of your life, it's also stretched over the life of your beneficiaries. So if you think about it this way, if you converted your regular IRA to a Roth, you would pay the taxes out of pocket. Now that money for the rest of your life is growing tax-free. But when you pass away and leave it to your heirs, they can also then stretch it for the rest of their life tax-free. So the first option that you have is a full conversion, basically where you're paying the taxes and converting the entire amount all at once. The second one is a slow conversion, and this is really where we go back to that tax return. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at your current taxable income for the year. We're going to see how much more taxable income that you can receive without pushing you to a higher tax bracket. Or if you're over the age of 65, 66 in some instances, and you're receiving Social Security benefit, we want to make sure that more of your Social Security does not become taxable. So we'll be able to find out exactly how much you can convert in any given year and still keep your taxes about the same. So we may come to you and say, okay, this year we want you to convert $10,000 of that IRA. You'll convert that amount. The next year it might be $8,000 or it might be $12,000 and so on. So really it's important that you work closely with your financial advisor and your tax advisor when making this decision.
Our next question comes from Roxanne, and she's writing us from Boston. She says her parents recently went to see a tax planner, and she wants to understand, is that the same thing as seeing an accountant? What do we think, Mark?
Roxanne, this is one that we work hard with our clients on within my firm. And really, unfortunately today, the difference between a tax planner and an accountant is a big difference. 20 years ago when you went to see your accountant or your tax advisor, you sat at their desk or your kitchen table or your dining room table and they prepared your tax return. They asked you questions as they were going through it and they had to prepare it by hand. Unfortunately, with the advent of the computer and computer tax programs, this personal touch is really gone. So today, what we see in a lot of accounting practices is really just tax preparation. You go there, they ask you some basic questions, and they prepare your tax return and tell you exactly what you owe the IRS. That's tax preparation and has nothing to do with tax planning. What your parents have done recently, if they've gone to see a tax planner is going to see you during the tax year, typically 4 times. They'll be sitting down with you. They'll be looking for ways to reduce what you pay in income tax. They'll be using mock tax returns and moving different interest items around from line to line. So for instance, one of the most popular is line 8A and 8B, taxable interest and tax-exempt interest. So if your parents walked into the tax planner and said, hey, look, we're paying too much in income tax, that tax planner could look at line 8A and see that they had a high taxable interest, and 8B seeing that there was not much at all in the form of tax-exempt interest. They could suggest to your parents at that point that they reduce their taxable interest, selling off corporate bonds, preferred stocks, and so on, and replacing those with tax-free. They'd be able to tell them actually down to the penny what they would save in income tax. A lot of people pay for the services of tax planning when they go, especially to go see a CPA, but unfortunately, most of the time, they actually just get tax preparation.
Great advice. You're watching The Savvy Investor, and we'll be right back. So, great questions from our viewers.
Great questions, absolutely.
So, when we left for our break, before we went to viewer mail, we were talking about those guarantees. And I got to tell you, that's one of those things that regulators and people are so confused about them. What exactly does it mean, guarantee? Because it's not, people think that for some reason, whenever you hear guarantee, you hear the store guy down there selling cars, I guarantee it and all that. In our industry, when it comes to insurance products, what exactly is that guarantee?
Most of the guarantees that people get confused about, Mike, are with these living benefit riders or these guaranteed income riders. And how they typically work is this.
Well, before you go to the actual living benefit riders, who's guaranteeing this? Because when they say guarantee, I hear it all the time. I hear people on the radio all the time about, we guarantee you 8%, we guarantee your money back, no matter what happens. Stock market goes down, we guarantee. And I get clients come in the door and say, guarantee, that's great. I'm going to make 8% no matter what, it's guaranteed. And I have to explain to them, two, one, about how the living benefit riders works, and we can go to that. But two, what exactly is the guarantee? Because it is not FDIC, which begs the question, why do banks even need FDIC if they're a safer place to be? But we won't go there. But what exactly, how are these insurance companies guaranteed?
They're guaranteeing them through the strength and claims paying ability of the insurance company. So the due diligence involves checking out the strength of the insurance companies because that's basically who's going to be on the hook for the guarantee is the insurance company. Now, many states, I think every state, has what they call a guarantee association fund.
Right.
And how that works is they basically, if you want to sell a product in a particular state, you have to become a member of that state's guarantee fund or that pool.
The insurance company has to be a member of it.
The insurance company has to be a member of it. And in my opinion, the way I explain the guarantee associations is, who do you think has more money? All the insurance companies doing business in a particular state or the FDIC?
Right. And the fact is that, and I kind of joked around FDIC and the banks needing it during the Depression.
Right.
The insurance companies didn't because they weren't in trouble like banks were. But to some extent, just like banks really don't go out of business, insurance companies don't go out of business. For that reason you just talked about, the state insurance commissioners all kind of politely get together and create some sort of bailout that another insurance company would buy them if it ever came to that.
The other thing that comes into play, Mike, is solvency ratios. Insurance companies, by law, for every $100 they owe out to a particular client, they have to have more than $100 in assets on their books.
Right.
A real novel concept. Maybe if we owe people money, we ought to have it.
Right, we should have it in reserves. It's interesting, there's a great FDIC memo, and I know I keep going back and just hammering FDIC in the whole banking industry, but there's a great FDIC memo, I think it's from April of 2011, that they go out and they say, FDIC is telling the consumer that we hope by 2018 that they have 1.15% in capital reserves for every dollar they owe. So on a $250,000 account, we're talking about they have less than $3,000 set aside to protect them, and you're saying an insurance company to effectuate that guarantee that they're making is that they actually have to have $250,000 plus set aside.
Correct.
But where's the money going? It's basically going into bonds.
Right.
And that goes to the fact that, look, if you're going to buy an annuity and you want to make sure it's a good annuity, you need to look at the underlying portfolio. Where are the bonds? The
quality of the bonds.
The quality of the bonds. Are they investment grades? You know, what happened in 2008? Did they slip? Did they come back up? There's all sorts of factors.
Right.
Let's talk about those guarantees rate of returns. That's the living benefits.
The living benefit riders. And these, I think, are one of the greatest things that happened to annuities in a long time, but they are kind of tricky. You gotta really look at the fine print. How they basically work, Mike, is when you add a guaranteed or an income benefit rider, the insurance company is going to give you a guaranteed rate of return on the income base. So this is not necessarily the return on your real money. Their real money in a variable annuity is in the market, and it's going up and it's going down.
So the guarantee is not walk away money. So when you hear somebody tell you you can get 6, 8, 7%, whatever the number is, that you don't get to walk away with that. That's going to be an income stream for you at some point down the road.
That is correct. And now to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, some of these insurance companies are coming out with what they call death benefit riders, where you can walk away. The beneficiaries can walk away with that 6 or 8% rate of return as well.
Yeah, but you know what? At least, this goes back to your pension thing. For me, I don't want to discount my kids, but I'm more
Right.
worried about my income
Sure,
for me.
sure.
I worked hard for it. I want it for me. So I can buy an annuity, be it an index or a variable, that has some sort of, the guarantee that the insurance company is offering, and it's going to create an income stream for me and my spouse
Right.
that neither one of us can outlive. And if we die early, whatever's left over goes to the heirs.
Goes to the heirs.
Whoever they happen to be, and both of us will volunteer to be those heirs if you need them. But, all right, so let's talk a little bit about the whole idea of surrender charges and liquidity, because that's another big issue. I see too often, we have a regular radio listener, and it's interesting. She came to us on a bunch of vacations and said, I want you to invest my money. She's 83, 84 years old. I want you to invest my money in the stock market, in an annuity. And we kept telling her no, because she had less than $100,000 in her bank account, and that was her entire net worth. And she kept trying to give it to us, and we kept telling her no, because, from my perspective, I have a fiduciary duty to look out for your best interest.
Sure.
And for her, we'll just call her Mary. For Mary, it wasn't in her best interest to put her money in an annuity, be it variable or otherwise,
Right.
because just of those surrender charges. Now, some captured agent went ahead and did that for her, and now she's calling me up saying, I need some of my money back, what do I do? And we're explaining to her, well, that's the whole liquidity surrender charge issue, which is why we didn't recommend it in the first place and tried to tell you to keep your money, even if banks aren't paying well, why you should have stayed in the bank. So let's talk about those two issues: surrender charges, surrender periods, and the liquidity thing.
Yeah, two things there, I guess, and what you're referring to, Mike, is suitability.
Right.
Whether a particular investment is suitable for that particular individual. And surrender charges, you can get into contracts with as little as a 2 or 3 year surrender charge, and it can go as long as 15 or 16 years.
And there's even, to be honest about it, there's actually annuities out there that have no surrender charges. It's just a
Correct.
matter of what are the perks and the benefits that you want. You can buy a Yugo, you can buy a Ford Fiesta, or you can buy a BMW, or you can buy a Rolls Royce. Each one costs a little bit different, and they have different features, and you're paying for what you get.
Absolutely. Every insurance company is dealing with the same dollar.
Right.
Okay, so if one company's got a longer surrender charge period than another, you're probably getting something in return for tying up your money for that longer period of time. In particular, you may be getting a bonus.
Right.
Okay, so if a company is offering you a bonus, they're giving you free money, they're taking it away somewhere else.
Right, because they're not in the business for free.
Right, so they're all dealing with the same dollar, and you really have to look carefully at what you're getting in response to that.
So surrender periods, 5, 10 years, 3 years, different time periods.
Right.
So certainly based upon when you need your money. Now, a surrender period doesn't mean I can't get access to my money or I can't take income. It just means I can't walk away with it without a fee.
And that's a good point, and I always try to point this out to people. Insurance companies with surrender charges, at least they're telling you up front what you're going to be able to walk away with at any particular point in time. When you have money in the stock market, you don't know what you're going to be able to walk away with at any particular point in time. So that is a difference, and they're spelling it out for you in the contract.
Now, what about those surrender charges? Because they can be hefty, right? 5, 10%, even
Sure.
15 and 20 sometimes.
Yep.
So if you're looking at one of these, you need to make sure you understand what are your liquidity needs, and what are the surrender periods, and what are those fees. Now, from a practical point of view, is there like a limitations, a ceiling on how much money you should put into these things? Do you have an opinion on that?
A lot of people say, 50%, 60%, no more than that, because you really want to make sure you have enough liquidity, and that is key for most people out there today. I mean, you don't want a person to feel strapped that they don't have any money and they get their hands on. I call that cookie jar money.
Right.
You just reach into the cookie jar and you pull it out, and people feel comfortable knowing they have a certain amount of money. Everybody's different. For some people, if they don't have if they have $30,000 in their checking account, it's too much. And other people, if they don't have $250,000, it's not enough.
Yeah. I know that feeling. I deal with that too. Now, from our perspective, because they are such, from my perspective, the reason why a person should use one of these things is to produce income. And if you're going to produce income, you start with a budget. How much do I need during retirement? And then, to me, you put the least amount possible into it in order to accomplish the goals.
Right.
And it's really, that's what financial planning is all about, and your retirement's all about, is having a plan, knowing what you're going to do. And while a variable annuity, if you read the headlines and you see the news, it's always bad, 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 bad. Annuities themselves, there's nothing wrong with them. Right. It's just using them in the right manner for the right reason to accomplish the right goal. So like any tool, if I joke about this all the time. I'm all about hire the guy to fix the problem. But, I'm still trying to figure out how to get that little hook on the hammer into the socket to unscrew the screws. I mean, if you use the wrong tool, you're in a world of trouble.
It's not going to work. Right?
And that's exactly what it is about variable annuities. Dan, absolutely pleasure. Great information. Thank you for joining us. We're going to come back in just a minute. We're going to go through the tips of the week. What did Dan give us? What are the takeaways? You're watching The Savvy Investor with Mike Canet. We'll be right back.
Like any tool, there's the right tool for the right job and a wrong tool for the wrong job. We've just scratched the surface here, and you'll want to know more about how today's conversation might or might not fit your needs. Ask about fees, surrender charges, market risk, interest rate risks, how the guarantees work, liquidity, and much more. Remember, the right tool for the right job.
Today we are joined by Dan White. He's an annuity expert with over 26 years of experience. And he gave us 3 important takeaways on today's show. First and foremost, we need to understand that not all annuities are sold with a commission, but even if you choose to buy an annuity that has a commission, remember to weigh the pros and cons versus paying a one-time commission to your advisor versus an ongoing yearly 1% charged by many financial planning professionals. Now, the second takeaway from Dan today is that when somebody talks to you about guarantees, you need to remember that when someone says that an investment is safe and guaranteed, you need to know how that guarantee is going to work and how you're going to get paid. And quite frankly, there may be strings attached to that guarantee. Now, the last thing they gave us, and this is my favorite thing, is that contrary to what Susie Orman claims, variable annuities aren't good, they aren't bad, they just are. Like any investment vehicle out there, if you use them correctly, they're great tools for the right reason. If you'd like our free guide, The Consumer's Guide to Variable Annuities, call the number you see on your screen. It's a step-by-step guide to help you make smart choices about your money. Give us a call and we'll send out the guide at no cost to you. We'll see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.